All right, everyone, welcome to the Monday, April 12th, 2021 meeting of the Planning and Development Committee. We have a quorum. I am calling the meeting to order. Ms. Nyden, would you call the roll?
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
I'll move that we suspend the rules to allow us to conduct meeting utilizing the Zoom video conference software in lieu of an in-person meeting and in conformance with the governor's prior directives related to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Second.
Alderman Nguyen?
Here.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Rusimmons? Alderman Sufferton?
Aye.
Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Now, would you please take the roll?
All right. Alderman Nguyen?
Here.
Alderman Wilson?
Here.
Alderman Rusimmons?
Here.
Alderman Sufferton?
Here.
Alderman Ravel?
Here.
And Alderman Rainey?
Here.
Okay, so our first item is approval of the minutes. Would someone like to make a motion with respect to the minutes? This would have been the minutes for March 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Rusimmons?
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton? Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
All right, the minutes have been approved. So our first item is P1, and I'll just go ahead and read it. It's ordinance 22021, 1012, 1018 Church Street Plan Development. This is the Northlight Theater. The staff recommends City Council adopt this ordinance to extend the time for the commencement of construction of the planned development at 1012 through 1018 Church Street, originally approved on October 14th, 2019. This ordinance would grant a 2-year extension for the building permit issuance to October 14th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Nyden, would you call the roll, please?
Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Rusimmons?
Excuse me, I want to be clear on which agenda item that was. I was distracted and I'm going to be recusing myself from one agenda item.
That was P1, Alderman Simmons. This was the one involving the Northlight.
Aye, thank you.
Alderman Sufferton?
Aye.
Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, the motion passes. So our next item is P2. This is ordinance 34021, granting a special use for a mixed-use business model that includes a business vocational school, Sunshine Enterprises, in the I-1 Industrial Office District and ORD Redevelopment Overlay District. The ZBA, okay. Has it been moved and seconded without my reading it? Okay. All right, let me go ahead and read the whole thing. The ordinance, the ZBA recommends the City Council adopt this ordinance granting a special use for a mixed-use business model with a business vocational school, Sunshine Enterprises, in this I-1 Industrial Office District and the ORD Redevelopment Overlay District. The applicant has complied with all zoning requirements and meets the standards for special use for these districts. Now, would someone like to move and second it? And then we do have public comment on this one.
I move approval.
Second.
All right, okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Ms. Nyden, can you tell us who is our first public commenter?
Sure, you do have public comment for items that are not on the agenda, and then there are people who have signed up where they haven't indicated what item they have signed up for. So how would you like to take the comments?
Do we have any for P2?
We have somebody for R2. I'm sorry, that's rules. Sorry, wrong line. I have
comment.
nobody that's indicated for any of these
Yes, I
items.
have a comment.
Okay. Ms. Payton, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. Okay, so I feel like that this should be on hold. This was only presented briefly at Alderman Braithwaite's meeting, and we have not had any public input. And I feel like we're doing drive-by passing of ordinances and recommendations with no community input. And I'll say it again, that aldermen are supposed to represent the community and what we want. We have had no input, and like I said, it was just a brief presentation about this. And I think it's not right and it's unfair. And of course, you know, Alderman Nguyen, in your ward, you had something where you listened to your community members about what they wanted in their ward, and it's currently up for consideration. And I think that we should have the same consideration here in the second ward and all wards. And we've asked for many things and got nothing. This is a drive-by passing. This plan has not been formally presented in front of the community with community input. And also, we have not had any opportunity to find out how the project is going to be funded. From what I remember before, they said it was going to be $6 million. It's unclear, and it should not be passed through just because you all have an agenda to pass through items before the council changes. This should be put on hold, and Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Payton. I did want to just point out that this item went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, where it had a public hearing, and a number of the community members did speak at the Zoning Board of Appeals public hearing on that matter. And so this is the part of the regular process that an item goes to. First, it goes to, if it needs to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, it goes there. The Zoning Board of Appeals holds hearings, and then they make a recommendation to the city, the Planning and Development Committee, and that's what we're doing right now. We're taking in their recommendation.
Well, I just meant there was no community meetings except a drive-by Zoom meeting for a few minutes. Mm-hmm. It needs to be community first, and that's where it should be held right at the base, not at ZBA or Plan Commission or whatever commission. This needs to start at the base, at the community itself, not all of you.
Okay, I understand. Okay, next I believe is Carlos Sutton.
Yes,
Welcome, Mr. Sutton.
thank you. Good afternoon. I just want to follow up on Tina Payton, but I also have two concerns. Number one, if there was a variance approved, I would like to be aware of what the proposed variance is going to require. Secondly, we have enough land that's developable without any developers first requesting a variance to put it up. I'm also concerned about the location of this proposed development. If it's the correct place I'm looking for, that used to be the car place where you took the cars and abandoned them down the alley there. It doesn't seem to me a very place that a city will put these kinds of businesses on an alley behind a shopping center that would be appealing for anyone to want to visit. And thirdly, more important, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak, because we did not have the opportunity earlier to get access. And I do appreciate you not to approve P234021 at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, Ms. Nyden?
Mike Busocco has signed up to speak to 2715 Heard, but that is not an agenda item tonight.
Okay. Just before we vote on this, could you just briefly explain that my understanding is the only reason why this went to the ZBA is because it was a special use. Am I correct in that?
That is correct. There are no variances requested for this project, and it's an existing site that will be rehabbed. The applicant is in the Zoom meeting. If there are any questions that you want to ask the applicant.
Alderman Wilson?
Thanks. And one of the things that, I continue to have to explain in the community repeatedly, but, the city doesn't put businesses in things, that people want to open a business or people want to, come up with an idea for use or something like that. But this is the city doing it. So this is just a process that a member of the community or the member of the public or the member of the business community has to go through in order to get permission to do it. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. I think one of the speakers, alluded to the city putting this in, and this isn't us doing it. I don't think this has any city funding either. So this is looks to be an interesting opportunity for a number of, ongoing businesses, and it looks like it's a suitable location. So I feel like this is appropriate.
Any other comments from the committee? Alderman Ravel?
Oh, well, I just like to point out, this collection of businesses, only one of them is the business that's triggering the request for the special use. So all of the other businesses could go in by right without it even coming to us on the city council. I was surprised at how busy that alley is, and it does seem that it would be good once we get past COVID to have the city do some kind of a traffic analysis to see if there are ways to improve the alley or how the traffic flow. And by that time, maybe there'd be also the businesses would have started in that building, so we could see whether there are any kind of improvements that could be made. But I think it seems like a really interesting proposal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think this is a building that hasn't been used. I think this is a new kind of readaptive use that brings a number of small businesses together that might not be able to launch themselves solo. And I think this is they have a lot of nice overlap. So I agree with Alderman Ravel that once the COVID is passed and things stabilize, that certainly making sure that the traffic is not overwhelming, especially as the alley opens out onto Main Street, is important. Alderman Rainey.
I think listening to the criticism is confusing, because we have been told that what we need are more entrepreneurs, more service-oriented small businesses, and these are all neighborhood services that people can use. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just confused as to what will make people happy. And these are two frequent attendees and participants, and I guess I'd like to hear what they're, not right now, some other time, what they would like to see in neighborhoods. And I'm sure that there were signs posted on the property notifying neighbors that the meetings at ZBA were going to happen. And, everybody's invited to a Zoom meeting. It's much easier to get to a ZBA Zoom meeting than to, get dressed up and drive over to City Hall to attend a ZBA meeting. So I think the opportunities were certainly there for people to participate in this. And when I saw this on our agenda, I thought this was a pretty exciting, pretty satisfying project, and I'm certainly going to support it. And at least one or two of the projects involved here have been talked about in the community, and GoFundMe projects were, involved in helping out here for quite a long time. So I think it's very exciting, and I'm glad to see it come to fruition.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. If there's no further comment, this item has been moved and seconded for introduction. Do we need to take a roll call for that, Ms. Nyden? All right, please take a roll call then.
Alderman Nguyen?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Rusimmons?
I abstain.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Alderman Sufferton?
Aye.
Alderman Ravel?
Aye.
Alderman Rainey?
Aye.
All right, this has been introduced and it will go on to the council. And I agree, this is exciting. We need more projects like this. So then we're going to move on to D1, the first item for discussion. Ms. Nyden, would you like to explain this to us? I know we received a memo in the packet.
Sure. Good evening, Johanna Nyden, Community Development Director. This was a request, a referral from Alderman Fleming to send mailed notices to units, housing units that are occupied by renters. Currently, the software that we utilize sends to the taxpayer, which is often also the owner of the property. So the proposal here would be to investigate the how we would go about noticing to the unit. The cost associated with it, but also what impact that might have in scenarios in downtown where you have multiple, or even some of the more dense areas in South Evanston, where you'd have multiple units that are rental units, what that would look like, and bring back and then look potentially seek a referral for a text amendment to change how noticing requirements would be made.
Mm-hmm. Discussion? Alderman Wilson, then Alderman Ravel.
So as far as the logistics, through the the landlord registration process, do we have a record of the units? I can't imagine we could actually address it to the tenants by name, but if we keep a record of the units and the addresses, that would work. But otherwise, how would we do the logistics on something like that, or is that to be determined?
I mean, we could, to be completely honest, it would be very hard to say, oh, let's look at the units that are within, because we have a software tool that draws a radius from the property line. So we can be as precise as possible. So to pull in units just based on our registration would be very challenging. And we don't necessarily have the names of the individuals we could address as a unit, 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. We do have those kinds of that kind of information, but it isn't necessarily consistent across the board. And for our larger buildings in downtown, it depends on the landlord if they provide that information, but they don't always provide that information or treat their residents as though they're individuals that should know about land use decisions in the downtown. So it's not very consistent between apartments and condominiums.
Does the Postal Service keep a database, postal customer, something like that we could have access to?
To some extent, yes. This is a service, this is a tool that we purchase and maintain access to. So, but this would be what we would have to explore is what are our options in terms of, is it something that the Postal Service provides? Is it something that can be easily uploaded into our GIS system that we use? And it's a little bit more than just spending a few hours on this in response to a referral. If we want to spend relative staff time, then we would want further direction on this.
All right, I do like the idea, because if you live somewhere, and something's going to have a significant impact, you ought to have a chance to know about it.
Alderman Ravel?
So the phrase land entitlement hearing, is that just means things going to ZBA and the Plan Commission? Is that, it's not anything, not a special animal that I've never heard of before?
It's anything that we send a mailed notice for.
Okay.
So for ZBA, Plan Commission, and even some of the notices that might be just to notice people for something like DAPR, DAPR is the decision-making body if that came to pass, or the zoning administrator as well. So when minor variances occur, those are only sent to this list of people.
And who pays for those postcards? Because does the applicant pay?
The applicant pays for the postcards, yeah.
Right, so that could be a significant increase. I guess having had a couple of these, I guess, special uses or variations in my ward where the residents were keenly interested in the outcome, but they never got the postcards, so we've had trouble with the postcards even getting delivered. And I think having the sign posted on the property maybe is really helpful, because that does catch people's attention. Maybe short of trying to send a postcard to everybody in a building, maybe the apartment buildings and condo buildings within that area could have a sign posted in their lobbies or something as an alternative approach.
Alderman Rainey?
The farthest I would go on this is to, give the management company a form letter asking them to provide it to all their tenants. But I think asking for every single tenant's name to be released or to, mail into every single building. I mean, imagine mailing into E2 or, one of the large buildings or a whole block of buildings. That's an enormous expense when you could simply ask the management company. I think it's way too expensive. And I wouldn't support it.
Okay, staff, do you have enough information to move forward? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Fleming.
And I missed public comment. I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. I think, Alderman Rainey, your point was really my point since I made the referral. I just wanted people to be noticed. That I've had a couple of times where people weren't noticed, and to your point, Alderman Ravel, particularly like in the Perlman building, like where my mother lives, there was a sign there, but it was out in front of the bushes, kind of facing the street, and a lot of those residents don't go out there, so they didn't see it, and so they really felt like, even though we did the legal notice, they didn't know. I think Alderman Rainey's point does serve, kind of my request, which was either a sign in the lobby or, something that goes out just to the residents in the building, because a lot of people, even though they're renting, they do care what's going on around them, and who knows if the landlords are getting them that kind of information when they get it from us. So if we can save money by just asking the landlord or management company to hang something, that would be a good start, particularly for the senior buildings who aren't always, going out on the sidewalk, walking in front where we put signs out. So thank you for considering that.
Well, I think it'll be interesting to, as you said, Alderman Rainey, to check on the cost on it, because you could inadvertently be next to in a denser area and maybe not be a large developer. And so I agree, having something posted in the lobby or asking the management company to forward it on to the tenants. But let's see what the costs come back at, because at this point it's 70 cents a notice, and that could be a lot of money depending on where you are in the city. Yeah.
Alderman Nguyen, just think over on Emerson, in one of those little ground floor retail spaces, you wanted to put something that required a special use, let's say a fast food. You would have to notify everybody in E2, everybody in 811. I mean, you would go out of business. You wouldn't be able to afford it to do the notice.
So, but I agree with you. Management company there, they have access to all of the tenants, and that would be an easy way for them to contact them. Mm-hmm. But I do think letting people know where they live, what's going on next to them is valid, because we have a lot of long-term renters in Evanston, people who aren't necessarily owning a condo, but they plan to live where they're living for a long period of time.
Well, my point is that we should not, excuse the double negative, notify tenants. I mean, I'm a proponent of tenants. It's that we shouldn't burden the small business wanting to do a special use or major variation.
Yep, we're on the same page. All right, Ms. Nyden, you have enough information to come back with us, to us?
We'll continue to review the cost for this. I would advise everybody, it's very difficult to pick and choose who gets added to these lists. We do a lot of mailings. We can't necessarily opt in. We do make best efforts working with the local aldermen to make sure people are aware of things, but we're only as good as the people that are working with us on these things. But we certainly understand that the work to try to get more people engaged and informed.
And I seem to remember that at some point those postcards were a different color. Am I remembering this right, where the notice postcards were like a bright yellow or something like that? Must have been something else. So I don't know whether if we change the color, that would probably increase the cost, that people would pay closer attention to it. And it wouldn't just go right into recycling inadvertently. Okay.
We will explore all options.
Yes. Okay, so with that, I think that concludes our agenda, if I am right. So would someone move adjournment?
So move.
Second?
All right. Do we need a roll call again? You'd think I would learn this by now. Okay. All right.
What about non-agenda items?
I'm sorry, Mr. Fasilko?
I was signed up for a non-agenda item to speak to.
Grandmother's here, grandson.
You have to wait for the city council meeting.
I believe that you had signed up for something that on the city council?
No, I was signed up for this committee because I wanted to learn more about 2715 Hurd Avenue, a development that, according to a flyer that was distributed in the neighborhood, is very close to being approved by the city. And it's the first I heard of it.
Mr. Pasilko, that item is not on our agenda tonight.
I understand that. I entirely understand that, but you have staff here that can answer the question.
All your aldermen.
I wrote to my Alderman Rainey, and this is why, and as long as you brought that up, this is, your comments to Tina Payton, like she attends enough meetings, don't
Madam Chairman.
bother, listening to her.
Hold of this.
Mr. Pasilko,
That's why some aldermen are being replaced, because you're tone deaf.
Okay. All right. I'm going to adjourn this meeting now. And
Thank you.
the next meeting, the city council meeting starts at 5? No?
You have rules next, Alderman Nguyen.
Oh, excuse me. We have rules. So we
Rules
all
at
have
5:15.
rules right now. Thank you. All right. See you in a minute, everyone.